Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 52 of The Mayor and I with me, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE.
Also known as MAGA Trump.
MAGA Trump. And it's our weekly episode where we talk about things that are happening in the news.
It is.
And various other things, and Nick tries to calm me down, basically. And if you like us, is it a thumbs up?
Comment.
And subscribe, please.
Subscribe and share. If you can.
Which I give lots of thumbs up. So, Nick, welcome. Sorry.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Before we start, can I do an announcement?
You can.
Obviously, we all know I've got a new book out. I'm not asking you to buy it. I'm asking for a favour. I need people to go on Amazon and comment on the book and review the book. I've had 10 trolls go on the account who have never bought the book because you can tell they've not bought it.
Yeah.
If you bought it, you're a verified purchaser.
Yes.
They've never bought it. They give it 0 out of 0 stars, and they've slated it. So my viewings and my review now on Amazon is really poor. So I need people to go.
Who is doing that, Nick?
They're just people who don't like me. So they've heard me say something once they don't like, and they've gone.
That's a big demographic.
Yeah, it is a big demographic. So they're going. We're going to view it. We're going to ruin your little book sales because I don't sell many books. So they've gone on now and they've slated it, and I can tell I've not read it because one said it sounds just like Mein Kampf. Another one said it's the most expensive Andrex toilet roll he's ever bought.
These are such grubby people, aren't they? These are people I can guarantee who have never written a book in their lives.
Yeah.
These are people who have never achieved anything in their lives. These are people whose only satisfaction and achievement they can get is from trying to hurt and stress other people, basically. I think these are just. It's like all the people who somebody was saying the other day. All the people who slag off Elon Musk are generally people who've done nothing in their lives. You know, and that's the same with you, isn't it? You've written a book. You spent the time. You've written a book. You do things. You're making an effort. You're trying to talk about things, and then these grubby little people do that.
Yeah,
I think. It's
I'm not saying it's the best book in the world because it's not the best book. It won't even be the best written book because I'm not a writer, but it is the best I could do.
Yeah.
It's better written than the last 3 books I've done because I am getting better every time I write a book. And I wouldn't mind if they bought it and then it was constructive criticism. If they said, 1 star out of 10, 2 stars out of 10, I found it slow, I found there was too many mistakes in it.
Yeah, constructive criticism.
I need to take that on board.
Yeah.
But just to go straight to 0 and I've not bought it and I hate it in your trap, what can you do? But if you go on Amazon and give it a good review and let's try to diminish some of the criticism that they've made up.
So if you don't mind, viewers and subscribers, that would be good of you to do
20
that.
seconds.
I'll do it when I get back tonight. By the way, just if I can comment, very nice hat you're wearing.
Very nice hat you're wearing, sir.
Thank you. I forgot I was wearing this.
We're twins.
Yeah? Yes.
It's Tweedledum and Tweedledummer.
And why are you wearing that hat, Nick? What does it symbolise? Or because it seems to have some writing on it.
I think there's something going on in America today, and even though this podcast is unbiased, and we try to put both sides to every argument as if we ever do that, we thought we may at some point mention the American election, and I forget who the people are running.
Yes. But I think with these hats, we may be showing some affiliation to one of the 2 primary candidates, which we'll maybe talk about later. So, very nice. It suits you anyway.
It suits you, sir.
And I was thinking, those trolls that accuse you of being bald, they can't do that now because they can't tell, can they?
That's why hats took off, because you can't be called bald anymore, can you?
Let's get straight into this week's podcast. I want to talk. We met last week Tuesday, and on Wednesday of last week it was the budget presented by Reeves. I can't remember. I'm so disinterested in this woman that I can't remember her name. I just thought maybe, first of all, your initial thoughts on the budget and what you think it symbolised in terms of this government and what we're seeing from this government?
It was as bad as I thought, but they were slightly cleverer than I thought. So they spun it for weeks, which all budgets do, as if it was going to be worse than it was, so they could pull it back at the last minute and people go, I'm glad it wasn't that bad. And the 2 points I would raise would be, first of all, fuel duty.
Yeah.
They've been talking about that for weeks, saying we're going to put 6p on a litre. They ended up doing nothing, which everybody went, thank God for that. And the other thing that means nothing, but they spun it well, was we're not going to penny off a pint of beer. Considering now you can't get a pint anywhere for less than £6.
It means nothing.
It means absolutely nothing. But they spun both of them well. So I was quite impressed with that.
Yeah.
But then looking at what they did tax, they hammered business.
They have.
And we knew they were going to, but they did hammer business. They made it harder for people to employ people. They are taxing profits. They're taxing more capital gains. They're making it harder for people who'd want to invest in this country. They've penalised non-doms. They've done everything we thought they would do around business. So this was definitely an anti-business budget.
Yeah.
Considering they keep talking about we want growth. Well, without business, there is no growth. They've taxed us an extra 40 billion that they're going to spend on infrastructure, so they say, because they believe that to trigger the economy to do better, you have to spend on the public sector. It's the complete opposite. You should not ignore the public sector, but the public sector to a certain extent adds no value to an economy. There's certain things do. If your road system's collapsing, your train system, there's things you can spend money on, bridges to connect two parts of the country, things like that. I can understand that, but giving train drivers a pay rise, giving doctors a pay rise, and this 40 billion, I mean to say, they're going to waste, and there'll be no more money left. And either next year or the year after, they're going to have to come back and increase taxes again. Yeah. Because I can't see how businesses would invest in this country at the moment. I just don't see. You're a businessman. How do you see that budget?
Well, it's interesting. I think you're right. They've hammered businesses, and there's two things that happen. One was the minimum wage, which was increased before the budget.
Yes.
And then there was employers' national insurance. So those things typically on a business that turns over, say, 12, 15 million and employs about 150 people, which are reasonable sized businesses. The cost in the last 2 years of minimum wage, and now with this as well, is around £250,000 a year for each of these little businesses. So that is a massive amount to find, basically. So yeah, I think in terms of our businesses, most of our directors are coming back and saying this is going to cost 150,000, this is going to cost 200,000, and that's a lot off the bottom line. And they're all now panicking. How do we make that money back? How do we keep that going? And I think we've said this before, the way that businesses respond to this are by, and you've mentioned it before, and you're right, automation. So you spend money on machines that will replace people to reduce the salary cost, because suddenly those machines become a lot more affordable. As salaries get more expensive, machines become more affordable, and then the decision to make it is that way.
If a machine that costs 3 times the salary of a worker, that just means in year 4 it's now paid for itself.
Correct. Yeah.
So now you're saving on that wage.
Yeah. And that is the exact calculation that's made by businesses. So there's that happening, and of course the second thing to reduce payroll costs is to get rid of people, which is again what businesses look to do in these situations. So I don't think it's good for workers either, because I think it will lead to less jobs basically, and then I don't know. I suppose the problem is now, how is that gap filled? Because it won't be filled by the 11 million who are on benefits. It'll be filled by potentially more migrants coming in here. So it's the whole thing is just very, very and I think the general mood in business is poor now. I would say generally most of the business people I'm speaking to are quite depressed and certainly talking to a lot of business owners who are looking to sell and just give up. I think they've had enough. You know, they've had COVID, they've had the Labour, the Tories taxing them. They've now got Labour taxing them as well. I think they're just giving up. I think
there's no end to it, is there?
There's no end to it. No, because this is the beginning. This is the beginning of 5 years, isn't it? So people I know are looking in Italy for places to buy, to go and live there, to because it's a nice sort of benevolent tax regime over there. So I think it's another nail in the coffin of British entrepreneurship and business, basically.
Do you know why the Blair government introduced the minimum wage?
No, I don't know.
So we never needed it before that because there was always supply and demand. Now, as someone who owns a business, you wouldn't want to overpay your staff if you could get them cheaper. Now, it sounds callous, but it's a business decision. So people get paid what they're worth. But when you flood the market with more workers, especially from Eastern Europe, that's what happened under Blair, suddenly there's an oversupply of workers. So therefore, supply and demand dictates wages can drop. Because if you don't want this job, pal, there's 17 more people queuing up outside the door to take the job. So to stop that happening, which was an immigration decision Tony Blair made to open the country up to Eastern Europe, he had to then introduce minimum wage to compensate for his political decision to allow mass immigration.
Oh.
So that was why we got minimum wage, because it was the only way he could ensure British people were getting a half decent wage.
Oh, which right, they won't be priced out of the market.
Yeah. Now, if he hadn't interfered with mass migration,
he wouldn't have had to do it.
There wouldn't have been any need to interfere with the market, with the minimum wage. So every time the government messes with something, they then have to come back to do something else to fix the mess they made in the first place. And then what they normally do to fix the mess then creates another problem.
Yes.
So when we got the minimum wage and when we got mass migration, it still wasn't enough to live on. So what did they have to do? They had to create something called tax credits, meaning you work full time, but it's not enough money. So apply to the government and they top up your wages. What sort of system's that? And then we had big companies at that time hiring people, and on the day they started, they gave them benefit forms to claim extra money from the government.
Because that's how they made up their effective living wage, basically. Yeah.
So the government and taxpayer were subsidising businesses to employ people. And all this happened because the government started messing with the market, and it was all out of kilter. The markets work on supply and demand and will adjust depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But once you've got a huge force like the government, it all goes out of kilter.
Yeah, and that's about that's about letting the market dictate things rather than artificially interfering, which is a big issue, isn't it? And it's it's an issue that should be applied to the not zero ideas, to all these other ideas that the government are trying to leverage actual processes and protocols in. They should just leave it to the market. Let's have a government. Let's have a police force to stop anybody breaking the law, and then really just leave it to the market after that. And that's the best way to get the best out of a country.
We all think this. We all think we're cleverer than we really are. So do governments. So a good example would be in Afghanistan. There was a documentary a couple of years ago, and it was a captain of the British Army, and he told this story, which I never forgot, and I wrote about it in one of my books. When they were in Afghanistan, they were doing patrols of Helmand province, and they had certain routes they'd go. And they went through the same villages. So one of the villages had no water well, and the women had to go out every day to the river 2 miles away, get water, bring it back. So they built a water well in the village. And the next month they came past, well, it had been damaged, and they thought the Taliban had been and broken the well. So they fixed it. Came back a month later, broken again. They fixed it. They came back, and the next one, broken again. And while the army guys were fixing the well, the captain had to walk around the village with an Afghan interpreter. And these women approached him, all in covered, and
hijabs,
started shouting at him. But he didn't know what they were saying. And he said to her, what are they saying? Maybe I don't understand. Maybe they're thanking me, but no, they're unhappy. What are you unhappy about? They're saying to you, stop fixing the bloody well. We keep breaking it and you keep fixing it. Breaking the well and having to go to the river to fetch water is the only time we get away from our husbands. We're allowed to leave the house. And it's a social time for us.
We can take off our hijabs.
It takes us half a day to go there, collect water, come back. And when the well's working, we're not allowed to leave our houses. Stop fixing the well. So we stop fixing it. A good example of thinking you're doing the right things, but not understanding the complexities that's going on around you. They thought they were doing a good thing. They weren't. They were adding to the persecution of local women.
Correct. And we've talked about this before, and it's called Chesterton's fence, isn't it? When you come across a fence in a field and you don't know why it's there, don't take it down. Because if there is some reason it's there, somebody's put it there at some point for some reason. If you take it down, you've got no idea of the consequences. But that's the nature of these grubby governments, isn't it? They're always fiddling and poking and trying to change things and you know, putting in little crappy rules like you know, like smaller glasses in pubs and all, you know, because they think, oh, if we do that, and we've talked about it before, this sixth form mentality, sixth form student politics that they seem to deploy all the time to try and manage a very complex country. If
only we could control you, your life would be happier.
Yes, yeah. And it's that, you're right, this is what they do. They come in, this Labour Party's come in, and you know, my view is the same as the Tories, but they've come in, they've never run a country before, they have little experience of life or people or how things work, and they come up with these stupid, very simplistic ideas, impose them on us, a mass, you know, 60 odd million people, and hope for the best. And you're right, it just sets, it becomes a domino effect, doesn't it? The thing rolls downhill all the time. Just going back to the budget, some of the things I particularly thought were interesting and I want to talk to you about was what they did to the farmers. And so what my understanding of what they've done here is farmers enjoy an inheritance tax break. So if they pass the farm to their kids, there's no inheritance tax. Or if they die and the farm then passes, there's no inheritance tax on them. But they've now put inheritance tax in there, and it's limited to, now most farms now are worth well over £1 million, tens of millions, a lot of them basically. So what it means now is that most farms, when a farmer dies, there'll be a massive inheritance tax bill on the children.
Who then won't be able to run the farm.
Correct.
Who will have to sell the farm. Because farms at the moment are hardly making a living anyway. So if that son of a farmer, daughter of a farmer, has to go out and get £1 million loan to pay the tax, the death duty on it, well, they're basically making a living now. But then to pay back £1 million as well as trying to make a living is almost impossible.
And I just think, and we've talked about this before, the attack of this government on food producers in this country. We only produce 55% of our food ourselves now. This will cause an even bigger decline in that food production process. And then the question for me is, why would you not want your own country to produce food? In term how much the government subsidises the farmers, only £1.5 billion in this country. Now, that's the winter fuel allowance. But we spend $7 billion a year on illegal immigrants, housing illegal immigrants. But we only give $1.5 billion to our farmers. Why would this government, or indeed any government, because this is a continuation of what the Tories have been doing to farmers, why would they want to stop farming? Why would they want to stop us producing our own food?
Short-termism. They have no idea about history. We almost lost the Second World War before we ever fired a shot, because Hitler tried to starve the country into surrender. He surrounded it with U-boats. He sunk all the merchant vessels who were trying to deliver food to the UK because we didn't have enough. We weren't growing enough food then, and that's when we had, victories, growing your own food. So every bit of spare land in the country, people growing tomatoes and not tomatoes, but cabbages, potatoes. He almost starved us to death. And because we've lived in peace since then, politicians are thinking, well, that'll never happen again. War's always coming. War is always coming, and we have no idea when it will happen and who the enemy will be. I think it's going to be China. But these politicians only work in the 4-year, 5-year political cycle. what's good for me in 5 years, not what is good for the country over the next 50 decades, 5 decades, but what is good now because I want to be elected again. But they should be planning for the future.
Yeah, but what is the advantage of sticking it to farmers?
They'll get money. It's a simple. You're a cash cow.
Yeah.
As a socialist, you look rich because you own
a
£3 million farm,
Yeah.
£10 million farm.
Yeah.
You're like the gentry of the 19th century. Well, no. I spend all day on a tractor studying cow shit. I work from 5:30 in the morning till 5 at night.
And they do. Longer than that.
Yeah,
Longer than that.
The profession has got such a high suicide rate. And they're trying to produce food. And it's harder and harder to produce food in this country because of all the legislation Parliament then inflicts upon them.
Yeah.
And then we say to farmers, well, we're going to start buying our pork from Poland, our lamb from New Zealand, all our vegetables from Spain because it's cheaper. Well, of course it's cheaper because they don't have to work with the same legislation we're having to work with.
Yeah.
If you took away this legislation, we still want some legislation. We don't want to be eating poisoned pork. But, remove a lot of the legislation and the bureaucracy, then our farmers would be competitive. And maybe then we don't have to give them the $1.5 billion anyway, because they'll be flourishing businesses.
Yeah. Well, an example is pork. And, we have a business in the pork industry. And British pork, the quality of British pork and pigs and how they're raised is head and shoulders above the Europeans.
Yes, of course it is.
There is an underlying standard that Europeans meet, but then there's a British standard which is even higher, and then an even higher one than that, which is red tractor, called red tractor. So, of course, the British farmers have to raise their pigs under all these conditions, like there's got to be certain space in the things, all that sort of stuff. And then the Europeans who don't have to do that are then competing against the British farmers, and the pork is going to be cheaper, isn't it?
Yes.
Even sticking it in a lorry and driving it across whatever, it's cheaper than British pork because the quality and the standards of the farmers have to adhere to in the UK is so much higher. It's scandalous.
And that's, again, only if we believe that they're doing what they should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you now, most of Europe break most rules.
Yes.
So we think those pork are being raised to that level, which is not as good as ours, but honestly, they're being raised to that level anyway, and just lying.
Yeah. So I think that it was one of the things that was raised in the budget, but I think that's a big issue. It sends all sorts of messages about what this government wants, what they're trying to do to this country. And destruction of the farmers and the production of food, to me, is a very, very serious issue. If you look across the pond, and we're going to talk about Trump later, what Trump is advocating, what people are responding to, is self-sufficiency in America. Self-sufficiency in fuel, self-sufficiency in food, manufacturing, everything. Back to the good old protectionism of, I think it was Roosevelt, wasn't it, who brought it here. Back to that. We're doing the opposite here.
The world is still doing the opposite, and Trump hasn't implemented anything yet because he's not won yet. So if Trump wins and starts implementing this, then that's a good test case to see exactly what happens.
Yeah. Will
it benefit America, or it may benefit one or two industries, but will other industries then collapse, or will prices go through? I have no idea. I'm not an economist, and out of everything we could discuss, economics is probably one of my poorest subjects, so I'm quite open to say I don't know that much about it. But you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's someone else prove us wrong.
Yeah.
And if he can do it and it works, then why not copy it? If he does that and it all falls apart and his economy collapses, then we'll go, well, thanks, Donald. We won't be doing that.
I think he already has done it with fuel. With the shale gas thing now, America is fuel self-sufficient now. Is exporting.
They export it, yeah.
Exporting. So I think he's already kind of proved the point, but I think he's going to go further this time if he wins. There's been a couple of high-profile people who've spoken out about the farmer thing, Jeremy Clarkson being one, as you'd imagine, and Kirsty Allsop. Yeah. And they're quite enraged, and that's been getting some publicity, unusually. So...
And don't forget, the farmers also have role models on the continent.
Yeah.
Because you don't mess with farmers in France.
Yes.
We had all the farmer issues in Holland when they blocked everything.
Yeah.
So I'm reading stuff now online that British farmers are looking at doing that. I believe there's a demonstration being organised for London.
I hope so. Yeah, I heard that.
Where
yeah.
they take all their tractors down. If you think Free Palestine's a pain in the ass, wait till you've got 10,000 tractors close the whole of London down.
And that's a protest I'll support.
Yeah,
because it's the only thing they can do, isn't
it?
It's the only thing they can do. Well, we're going to talk about bringing down governments later, but I think I was pleased to hear the farmers are looking at mobilising now. I hope they do. I really hope they do, because we've got to start getting the message across in any way we can to this government. And we know the Patriot marches aren't doing anything, but maybe the farmers doing something will make a difference. There was something else that was in there as well, and for a young man like yourself, Nick, it probably doesn't matter that much.
Well, with all my hair, you can't
with that massive hair under that hat you've got, and it's about pensioners, which is kind of close to my heart because I'm getting close to that stage now. So what they've done, and I don't know if you're aware of this or the ramifications of this, but they're going to bring inheritance tax onto pensions. So I have a pension. If I die, that pension now goes to my wife. She will basically become, the value of that pension will go to my wife, basically. And that's always been a tax-free interaction, as it should be, because it's a pension, basically.
And you're a couple.
And we're a couple, yeah. We're a couple, we're a family, we have kids. Yeah. So, like a lot of interspousal taxes, it's not taxed.
Yeah.
They've brought tax in on that.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Yes, I think it is.
Absolutely, because not only is it wrong, but haven't you spent all your life planning for your future?
Correct.
Planning for your wife's future if you die, or when you and all that planning over your lifetime has been done knowing it'd be tax-free going to your partner, who isn't someone, a business partner. It's not a friend you're thinking, I can give this to you if I die before you. Well, there might be a reason why that should be taxed.
Yeah.
I don't know. But for your life partner that you joined at the hip with and planned everything with as a unit, for now to find out if you die, we're going to tax all that. It's horrendous.
It's grotesque. It's grotesque, but what's even more grotesque is they've kept the public sector pensions out of this.
And that's because that's where all their voters are.
Yeah.
And that's where the unions are.
Yeah.
Most people in the union work for the public sector.
Yeah.
Most of their voters are in the public sector.
Yeah.
Let's not upset you.
Yeah.
We're going to upset all these people who don't vote for us.
Yeah. And you can see this. You can see the kind of juggernaut, can't you, of this government, which is we're going to push more and more people into the public sector. We're going to create a bigger public sector, which they are doing.
Yeah.
We're going to take away assets and value from people who have accumulated them, because they're not working people. The people who have spent their lives working to accumulate value, assets, houses. We're going to take as much as we can off those people, and we're going to end up with a communist state where we won't have enough food to feed people, and everybody's paid a minimum wage, a large minimum wage, just to survive, basically. But nobody owns anything. That's where we're heading, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's another attack on old people again, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's another attack on old people.
The attack before was on poor old people.
Yes.
Now it's attack on middle income poor people, because we told you for decades, save up, get a pension, save up.
Yeah.
You've saved up, thank you. We're going to have a lot of that money off you now, thank you. It
is obscene, isn't it?
It is daylight robbery.
Yeah. And it signals all these things to me, just signalling what they want to do. They want to destroy entrepreneurship with what they're doing to the businesses. They want to punish people who have any value or assets. They want to punish old people because they see them as an issue or a threat for some bizarre reason. And they want to propel us towards everybody being employed by the state, and everybody on a minimum wage and nobody owning anything. And it's kind of, you couldn't signal it any more clearly if you actually wrote it on a piece of paper.
Well, that is a socialist utopia.
Yeah, it is.
We may not be as rich as a capitalist system, but we're all equal.
Yeah.
And that will make us happier.
Yeah.
Do you remember anybody in Soviet Russia going, God damn, I'm happy? No. Everybody in East Germany, do you know what? I'm so happy here. I'm willing to get shot by the soldiers by climbing over the wall into the West.
Yeah.
That's how happy and content people are in socialist utopias.
Yeah. I think the sad thing about all this is that I think I said I know people who are looking at Italy things out. People who can afford to do it, people who've generated money, people who are capable of generating money.
Will avoid it all.
Are going. Yeah, they're going to go. And I think the rationale would be let's go for 5 years and come back when a proper government is voted back in again. Although I would argue, given I think it's the Uni Party anyway, I'm now starting to suspect, Nick, and maybe you'll disabuse me of this, that I think the Labour and Tory, I think the Tories have said we want to get towards this socialist utopia, but obviously with Tories we can't do too much. And they've said, I'll tell you what, we'll mess things up. We'll let you guys come in. So I think conversations have happened between Tory. We'll let you guys come in. You'll have a massive majority because we'll cock it up so much. You can then stick in all these things we wanted to do but couldn't do. And then we'll come back again in 5 years' time as the heroes, but we won't reverse any of them. We'll just say, we're going to look at this, basically. Is that too cynical of you?
As a plan, yes. But sometimes we get what we want without planning it. So when the Tories came in after Blair, they reversed nothing.
Yes, yeah.
So they didn't reverse any of his crazy ideas of mass immigration. They made it worse. They didn't repeal any of his laws, like the Equality Act. Instead, they appointed an equalities minister. So you're right. If they get in again in a few years' time, I don't think they'll repeal anything because they did that last time.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a uni party. The only difference with the Tories is they do it slightly slower and tell us we're not doing it.
Yes.
Where this Labour government are doing it quicker and telling us they're doing it. That's the only difference.
But they've been given the levers of power by the Conservative, because the Conservatives have given them such a stonking majority. And we discussed this last time. Yeah. They can do this stuff. And I think they're doing it knowing they're going to be hated in 3 or 4, maybe even 3 years' time, you said. And then Tories are going to come back in. But the Tories will come back in and give them the secret handshake and say, well done, guys. Thanks for getting that stuff through that we wanted to do, but we were a bit slow about, basically. And yes, we're not going to repeal any of this stuff, because, the country's economics are not great because of Labour. So we're going to have to, leave this stuff in place.
We're going to do everything Labour has planned to do, but we're going to do it slower.
Yes.
That's always their.
Yeah.
That's always their plan. We're going to do exactly what Labour were doing, but we're going to do it slower.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell you we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And that'll make you feel better that we're telling you we're not doing it, even though you can see with your eyes we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're going to go, Jedi, mate.
But my wife said to me, oh, you just got to stay alive for 5 years now. Because she still, I think, believes that the Tories are different to Labour. But I said to her, I can stay alive for 5 years, but the Tories are not going to repeal that inheritance tax thing.
No.
They're not going to do that. So it's going to happen, to me now or whenever. I think they're not bringing it until 2027, so I've got a couple of years to do some planning. Yeah.
To die. Your wife's there going, he better die soon.
Yeah. She did seem to be putting something in my drink the other day. I noticed, I looked around, there was some powder going in my drink, so maybe. I've got 3 years, 2 years to die, or to try and survive 5 years. So hoping against hope, the Tories might change that around. But I think for both of these things, the farmers and the pension, the noise from the media has been virtually non-existent. There's been very, very little in the papers about it. And these are massive things, I think, to me. Bigger in some ways than the increase of the national, but it's kind of, here you are.
It has. Again, that's why I said with the budget, they did some things quite clever.
Yeah.
So most people don't understand farming. Yeah. Lots of people don't have a pension, especially in the private sector.
Correct.
Because they've already told the public, we're not talking about yours.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, most people have gone, oh, I don't understand it doesn't affect me.
But it doesn't affect me,
But things like fuel duty would have done.
Yeah.
Penny on the pint.
Yeah.
Raising income tax or employees' national insurance or that all would have affected them. So they've been very clever to raise the money they need on taxes that their voter base don't understand and don't care about.
Correct. They've localised the taxes to businesses, to entrepreneurs, to pensioners, private pensioners as well. And they've left the public sector, which is a now massive chunk of employees, all alone. So they're all going, oh, well, what you complaining about Labour for? It wasn't that bad, was it?
Yeah.
And that's what they will be saying to their friends who say Labour are terrible. Oh, well, the budget wasn't that bad. It's not affected me at all, has it?
Yeah, exactly. Until all the prices in the shops start going up. Until everything else, until employment goes up, until interest rates go up, until your mortgage doubles because interest rates
are going to go up. So I was talking to a businessman yesterday about his business, and he said, I'm just going to have to put my prices up. Because what else can he do? And it's an easy discussion to have with your customer, isn't it? I've got to put my prices up because the government's imposed this new employees that, and it's going to cost this, that and the other, so I've got to put my price up. Sorry, mate. Yeah.
And all the competition for that service or product will have to put their prices up, because it's not like that one man is ripping off all his customers. No. Because if he was, he wouldn't be in business, because all his competitors would already be cheaper.
He's a careful businessman, this guy. He's running his business, he's run it for years, made profits.
So people who've never run businesses think, first of all, they think it's easy. They think you're your own boss.
Yeah.
I've run businesses. You're never your own boss.
No.
Whoever you're trying to get a contract off is your boss. So there's always someone above you trying to get work off or money off or contract off. The next thing people always think about is you run your own business, you're loaded. You just make prices up and people pay it.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you've got a million competitors. It's even harder now because of the internet. You're competing with people in China and India.
Correct.
If you're willing to wait a few days for the delivery.
Yeah.
So margins have been at rock bottom.
Yeah.
And many businesses fail because of overheads, because they can't cope with how tight it is to make a living.
Yeah.
But people think, you've turned over 9 million. Yeah, I turned over 9 million and I spent 8.99999999999 million to make 50 grand profit.
Yeah, correct. It's often like that.
Yeah.
In fact, it's similar to the way the government run their budget, but that's another story. There's a couple of other things that in the budget. Smokers and vapors were hit again.
Yeah.
Which again, we know this government loves, this and the last government love destroying people who just want to have a fag when they get home or whatever. That's just been attacked again. And they've put an additional, this thing has now become a matter of course. Oil and gas companies are now taxed. They've already got a super tax. They've put an additional super tax on oil and gas companies. Again, destroying the very companies in this country that produce the fuel that drives this country, basically. So they're doing that as well. So I think all of these steps really a very, very strong signal. We don't want people earning money. We don't want people making money. We don't want people owning assets. We want to have your money, and we're going to distribute it, in ways that you won't want us to, that most people wouldn't want us to do anyway. That's kind of the message.
It is. I think they're thinking we're going to punish and heavily tax people who don't deserve to have that money in the first place. That's how they're looking at it.
Yeah.
You're a rich pensioner. Well, you don't deserve all that.
Yeah.
You're an oil company. You're killing the planet. You don't deserve all that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it seems to be ideologically driven, but there's also a theme that runs through it all, which seems to be vindictive, which seems to be jealousy.
Yeah.
It seems to be, I'm going to punish my enemies, even if it damages me and society.
Yeah.
I need to punish those people because I perceive them as bad people. Yeah. Businesses, you're all capitalists. You're ruining the world. There's a whole stream.
I think you're right. I think the word is vindictive. Yeah. It's kind of, here's a section of society we don't like, that doesn't vote for us, that we don't think deserve to have things. We're going to specifically stick it to them.
Because if you got things, you obviously cheated.
Yes.
You obviously ripped somebody off. You obviously treated your workers badly.
Yes.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And we're just equalising it by punishing you now.
Because we're just taking it back now because you didn't deserve it in the first place.
You didn't get it through hard work.
Yeah.
You didn't get it through putting your house on the line, your family on the line, working 15, 17 hours a day for years and years. And you didn't get it because of that.
Yeah.
You got it because you persecuted and kept the worker under your thumb, and you took all the profits they were earning. You're just a bad capitalist.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up. I think that's what they think. And because, especially now, this generation of politicians have got no experience of life outside politics. I think in their minds they think that's true, don't they?
Of course it is.
And it kind of came across when Starmer was trying to do his definition of a worker, wasn't it? And it sort of boiled down over a long period of time to somebody who couldn't afford to write a check, even though nobody has checks anymore.
But that's how much he knows about the economy, economics.
Yeah. Well, he never has to write a check because he's given everything free from Lord Ali.
Well, I've looked at the finance in the government and I've worked it all out on my abacus. And we need to raise more taxes. That's what he basically said. That's how much he knows. He worked out on his abacus.
But but again, the hypocrisy that they're taking all this stuff off working people or non-working people as they regard it, whilst living the life of Riley, being given all this money by Lord Ali. I think we found out this week that Angela Rayner got another $3.5 worth of dresses off Ali. Going to Taylor Swift concerts, being driven around in expensive cars. I mean, it's just that they are grotesque.
It's different when I do it.
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm not doing it because I'm grubby. I'm doing it because I'm taking these things on behalf of the people. Because I represent people. So I've spoke to people who want me to go to Taylor Swift concerts. So I go for them.
Yeah.
It's all that bollocks.
It is. It's just horrific. Talking about this,
and I'm sure there is some nasty business people out there.
Of course there are.
I'm sure there's people out there who treat their employees poorly and do this and don't pay their taxes. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
But they're a tiny minority.
Yeah.
And the government wants to do something. I'd have no problem with the government penalising those people, making sure those people pay the fair share of tax, making sure they're living and running their businesses by the health and safety executive and I wouldn't have a problem with penalising the bad capitalists, but they don't. They penalise all the capitalists.
Yeah.
And who are the ones that will obey the new tax laws? The good guys.
Yeah, of course.
The ones who are not paying the ones paying their fair share now won't pay their fair share tomorrow anyway.
No, it's always, I mean, the fines, the taxes, everything, they're levied only on the good guys.
Yeah.
Not the bad, because the bad guys don't pay the fines. The bad guys don't pay their taxes.
They shut the business down and then start a new one up tomorrow and start all over again.
Yeah, so it's kind of, again, they just don't seem to understand how society works, how business works, how entrepreneurs work. And but they've been voted in. They've been given a massive majority, so they don't really care, do they?
No, they didn't get voted in. They won by default.
Talking about this grubby government, I think when you and I met last week, I'm pretty sure it was the day that the information was released about Axel Rudakubana.
Yeah.
And we just had got the beginning of the information then about that. Now, a lot has happened in the last week in terms of revelations and things happening in Parliament around this crazy kid who murdered these crazy man who murdered these scumbag who murdered these three little girls. I just wondered if your thoughts had kind of evolved or developed on what's happened here. Because I've got some thoughts, but it'd be interesting to hear yours.
This looks like a huge government cover-up. So the first thing I want to point out, which not many people have picked up on, is why are all the court drawings of him with his shirt pulled up to his eyes? Can you think of why that could be the case?
I may have an idea because I've started to watch, is it Katie Hopkins?
Yeah.
She mentioned something about a beard or facial hair.
Well, has he grown an Islamic beard?
What is an Islamic beard, Nick, for our gentle listeners? Because I'm never quite sure. I know there's a lot of Muslims have very tatty beards. In fact, I had one for a while.
She did.
So I kind of know what a tatty beard looks like. And I know a lot of Muslims have tatty beards. Yeah. So but what is an Islamic beard?
An Islamic beard is just a beard, but it's on it's on someone who is Muslim.
Right.
So in their belief system, it is a positive thing to do to copy the Prophet.
Right.
So they think Muhammad had a beard.
Does it have a particular look about it? It's not one of those where the top lift's shaved, is it? Is it just a normal beard?
It can be all sorts of things, from my understanding.
All right.
But if he has got a beard, then there is an issue there of is Is it an Islamic beard? That's a great because he's
Yeah.
trying to copy the Prophet Muhammad. I don't know. But it's very strange that every single drawing of him in court, he's got
Yeah.
a shirt up to there.
Yeah. Now, I've sent you a picture of him,
Yeah.
and he has got a beard in that picture.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Did you actually look at anything I sent to you?
Oh, rarely.
I don't know where it was taken. I think it was taken as he was being moved from a police vehicle to...
Oh, I've
from
missed that. I've missed that.
And there's 2 pictures of him. You might want to post these on you.
Right.
But I think he has a little beard, basically.
Right. So that
It's not a great big
yeah,
one,
yeah.
but it's a little beard.
Yeah. So that my idea was he may have had a beard, but it turns out it's right. He has got a beard. So were those drawings done deliberately not to show a beard in case people said, look, he's got a beard, he could be Islamist? That's one thing. The next thing is the cancellation of his court hearing and stuff like that, pushing it back. That looks like it was done because of the Tommy Robinson march, the Unite the Kingdom march. They wouldn't want this stuff coming out before that march and before they lock up Tommy Robinson, because I'm sure they were going to lock him up anyway.
Yeah.
It just seems to have been managed as much as possible, this court case. And then when you get to Parliament, the Speaker of the House has now decided no one can ask Keir Starmer any questions about the court case.
Now, that bit to me, I know you're going to expand on that, but that bit to me just seems weird. Because surely parliamentary privilege, everything else, means the entire purpose of Parliament is that you can discuss things like this.
Yeah.
So what's happened? Is this a precedent here that we've never seen before?
To me it is, but again, I'm not a historian. So parliamentary privilege means you can libel somebody in Parliament.
Yeah.
And you cannot be sued.
Anybody, not just somebody else in Parliament, but anybody outside it, yeah.
You can say anything you want, and that's not allowed to trigger a court case. You'd be sued. You'd be held
Which I think is
responsible,
fantastic.
because that's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And who do you want to be able to talk freely? Surely it's people in Parliament. We all should be able to, but we can't. But you think Parliament definitely should. But the Speaker of the House has said, no, you can't do that. Now, if he said you cannot ask any questions about the court case and the evidence in case we prejudice the court case, well, I can sort of get that, but he's gone beyond that. When you're not allowed to ask Keir Starmer anything that's in the public realm. So you can't ask him, when did you know about the terrorist charges?
Which is the question, isn't it?
Which is the question to ask. That's not going to diminish any future prosecution of this scumbag. That's a legitimate question. Prime Minister, when did you know these things? That's called holding politicians to account.
Yeah.
You're not even allowed to do that now.
That's the bit I find very strange.
Me, absolutely.
And why has nobody said anything about this? Or why has very few people said anything about it? It's not in the news. It's not a scandal. Whereas it should be a scandal that you can't ask questions of the government around this case.
It's not being reported on. That has been reported on, but then no one talks about it next day. First of all, it's because it's a bit complicated, and as a population, we're mainly stupid. So, and papers and news outlets are trying to sell papers. But also, if you as a reporter, you're not allowed to talk about this in Parliament. Shouting on the streets can get you 3 years in jail. These things subconsciously
scare people,
and you're thinking, is this the hill to die on as a reporter, as a news presenter? Am I going to die on this hill? Will I get sacked and lose my job? Will I end up in jail? And this is, we think sometimes that an authoritarian regime is a little bit like the SS. You know, you say anything, they come through your door, they beat you up, they arrest you, you go to to jail, you get killed. Most authoritarian regimes work because of the fear, and who terrifies you is yourself.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted tyranny is still tyranny.
Yeah.
And we've got to a stage where we're terrorising ourselves now because of the fear we think that may come.
This is a government of fear, there's no doubt about it. I mean, for me, this whole thing is, again, a grotesque for me, because we now clearly know that this character was making Ricin. which is a highly dangerous biological weapon.
I said that's something to do with wheat, fungus on wheat. I was wrong.
You were wrong.
Someone corrected me, thank you.
Several listeners corrected
it's castor
you.
beans.
Thank you, listeners. He gets carried away sometimes. Castor beans, is it? But it's difficult to make, though. It's not easy to make.
No, of course,
and then we now know he has connections to Islam, to the Muslim world through the fact he's downloaded an Al-Qaeda journal.
Yeah, we still don't know that to be true.
No, we do know he's downloaded it.
No, we download. That doesn't mean that's not proof that he's Islamist.
No, but it proves he has connections to Islam.
Well, anyone can download it.
No, I know, but if you download an Al-Qaeda an Al-Qaeda manual, you have then connections to Islam. Because Al-Qaeda is an Islamic organisation.
Yeah.
If you download an Al-Qaeda manual, you have connections to an Islamic organisation. Full stop.
I think that's a stretch.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I think it'll turn out to be that, but I think at the moment all we can say on that is he went to the go-to place if you want to be a terrorist, which is the Al-Qaeda manual.
Yeah, he did, and he was making a biological weapon.
Yeah.
And that information would have been available to Yvette Cooper, to Keir Starmer
within days,
if not hours.
Within at least, absolutely within 48 hours, absolutely.
And that information should have been given to the public, especially the biological weapon thing, because the public needs to be aware of this stuff, because this is about protecting our people, isn't it?
Would we have known about it if it had been you creating ricin in your kitchen to attack Parliament because they've increased your tax bill?
Yeah. Well, I might not have done. You might not have done because my surname's Khan. So they might have said, he might be a Muslim, so let's just hide anything, basically. But if it had been you, Nick, you'd be all over the front pages. There'd be pictures of you being dragged into a police car, your full face showing. Lots of pictures of you from past on the front pages. Nick Buckley, terrorist, white supremacist terrorist making ricin. Of course, within a day of that information.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the scandal. That the British public have been denied this knowledge, which could assist the British public, which could make them alert and aware, certainly in that area. All the people who live around there, if they'd have known that somebody's making ricin, they'd have been more alert. If they'd seen anything suspicious, they may have alerted or whatever. It could potentially protect people from danger by making them aware. They weren't made aware, were they? That's the first step of the issue for me.
They weren't. You could argue that it'd make no difference. Nobody could protect themselves anyway. That could be an argument you make.
No, but if you see something suspicious on the street round the corner from where the guy lives or whatever.
Yeah, the argument I would make would be the precedence of this before. We've been told all this before. What is special about this case that you will not share the information that you've done on every single case like this before? And the only answer is this case triggered riots and the government don't want any more riots, so therefore they're going to lie to us and propagandise us and twist things so we don't have the information we would have been given about any other case in the country.
The second thing for me is, what about the people who are now in prison? What about the people who said, I think this guy might be a Muslim terrorist, I think he'll have connections to Islam or whatever, who were arrested and imprisoned.
And turns out could be completely correct.
And could be completely correct. Yeah. If this information had been released at the time, they wouldn't be in prison, would they? Because if they were, I just said now, this guy's got connections to Islam. I'm right, because he's downloaded an Al-Qaeda manual. You can't arrest me now for that, because it's a fact.
Yeah.
So these people who were saying this at the time didn't have that knowledge, but it now transpires they were correct.
And it'll turn out that the government had that knowledge and that information, didn't present it, so therefore this is a corruption of our criminal justice system. And reinforces our stance that these are political prisoners.
Correct. Yeah. I think it does. It reinforces that, because actually what should happen now is there should be a wholesale release of these prisoners. But even worse than that, Nick, the government being in possession of that knowledge, Starmer, Cooper, in possession of that knowledge, went on TV and said, these people are right-wing thugs, they're criminals, they're going to be put in prison.
Yeah.
So even knowing that the people these political prisoners were saying things that were probably correct,
Yeah.
they then actually encouraged the police and the criminal justice system to imprison them. That's how bad this is. Yeah. And I'm not sure if everybody's put the dots together here about what this means.
I think they will, and I think there'll be a lot of reporting on this when it gets to court.
Yeah.
When the 100% facts come out.
Yeah.
Then there has to be payback for this. If it turns out the way we think it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. We're not a banana republic.
No.
This happens in other countries.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen here.
No.
You know, part of our criminal justice system is the prosecution has to declare everything they know. The police would have known this within hours.
Yeah. The police will have known.
Yeah. The CPS would have known.
And we've seen the DEI appointment who heads up Merseyside Police. I can't remember what her name is now. Is it Serena?
Sarah Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met her several times.
We've seen her, obviously has no idea what's going on. But there's also...
Serena Kennedy?
Yeah, Serena Kennedy.
Right.
There's also a video of her saying, threatening the people who are in the riots, don't think you've got away with it, you bastards. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Don't think you've got away with it, you bastards. We've got videos of you. We're going to come after you.
Yeah.
And we're going to come after you. You might be home now thinking you're okay, but we're going to track you down and you're going to be punished, you bastards, basically. She knew then.
Yeah.
When she was saying that, she knew then.
But her saying that wasn't about the people at the riots. Her saying that was a warning to everybody else. That's the propaganda bit. That's the authoritarian state going, we just need to keep you all scared. So none of you are going to go out and attend any more riots, attend any more demonstrations, because I've just scared the living Jesus out of you. So this was all about scaring the public to stop demonstrating.
But this is how horrific this thing is to me.
Police state.
You have a government who knows that this guy has connections to Islam. He might have his little beard or whatever it might be. He may be a Muslim. He may actually attend a local mosque. We don't know. And part of this, again, these local riots, were they precipitated by local knowledge of this individual? Because I don't know, do you, Nick?
No.
It could have been precipitated by local knowledge. So we have a government who knows he's potentially an Islamic terrorist. Yeah. We have a police chief and a police force who know he's potentially an Islamic terrorist. There's evidence there to suggest he may be. Despite that, and the people are out protesting about Islam and about Muslims, despite the fact they know those people have some validation and there is some logic behind their protests, they are punishing them and putting them in prison. And worse than that, not saying to them, listen guys, there might be a connection here because we found this and that, but please go home or please don't riot. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. This is how horrible it is.
It sounds just like a utopian police state, doesn't it?
It does, and that's what we're living in. The final bit on that, and it is really, the more you think about it, the more enraging it is. And what's more enraging is the fact nobody is talking about it in the mainstream media at all, as far as I can see.
They're not, because it's an open court case.
Yeah.
And they're terrified.
I think you're right. This is a government of fear, isn't it? And it's getting worse. But the final thing I want to talk about under this is Axel Rudakubana guy. The pictures. The pictures again, and I'm going to talk about three people, and I'd like you to describe to me the pictures you've seen of them. Axel Rudakubana, Chris Kaba, and Peter Lynch. What pictures have you seen in the papers of those three characters?
Oh, yeah. Chris Kaba, smiley, very friendly black man. Then we've got the Southport scumbag, Doctor Who fan, smiling child at 11, 12 years old. And then we've got Peter Lynch, mugshot.
Yes, it's true. It's unbelievable. Oh. So the only innocence in there, as far as I'm concerned, is Peter Lynch. But we see he has a mugshot picture. Yeah. Chris Kaba, the picture of a young smiling guy, promising architect.
You'll have lots of mugshot pictures by
he will have loads of mugshot pictures. But it's a young smiling black guy. I'm going to be an architect or whatever. And then Axel Rudakubana, picture of a 6-year-old kid. Yeah. What the hell is going on? Yeah. But
propaganda. It's how you control nations.
Surely, even Labour supporters, Nick, surely the general public, even those who don't have an interest in politics or whatever, must be seeing. Are they not seeing that?
They are, but we're so used to it, and most people are not reading the press, looking for the double standards. They're taking the press at face value, and to a certain extent, well, they are pictures of the individual. They're not looking at the behind the scenes manipulation of the narrative, of the story, of how you feel. You see a nice smiling picture of Kaba, you're going, it is a shame he got shot in the head.
Yeah.
You see a picture of him in his drill video with a mask on and gold chains doing gun signs, you're thinking he needs shooting in the head.
Oh, is there a video of him doing that?
Oh, yeah. So if you had a picture...
Well, I think he needs shooting in the head, but I think, yes, this is not an innocent. Yeah.
So it's all about setting the narrative, and we're very visual creatures.
Yeah.
And it's why marketing agencies, will say to companies, yeah, that's a great product, but you need to make it a light blue. Light blue affects people this way. Having a shadow like this, doing this. These are all subconscious things we can do to make people like your product, want to buy your product. And the press do it, and news outlets do it. There's all these subtle changes you can do. It doesn't change your opinion completely, but 1 or 2%.
Of course it influences it. Even I have been influenced by the Axel Rudakubana pictures. Because they keep bombarding you with pictures of this young, innocent kid. But I have seen pictures, I've sent them to you, of this guy. He's an adult with a big hair doing a little beard and, smiling and laughing after he's killed these little girls.
So when you see the pictures of him as a kid, the first initial response subconsciously will be, what did we do to him to turn him into a monster?
Yeah, correct.
What happened to him to turn him into a monster? So straight away, we take away the blame from him.
Yeah.
We start looking for who really is to blame. Same with Kaba. Look at that nice looking black man. Beautiful smile. He looks lovely.
Yeah.
What did we do to make him be a criminal and a gangster? Look at the photo of Peter Lynch. He's a scumbag, isn't he? So all these things work.
And the tragedy of that, the extreme, the extreme variance between those three characters. We have two horrific criminals, and we have a working class man who went to protest peacefully in London and is now dead. But the picture we see of him is a mugshot.
Let me give you another example. So, have you heard of dead naming?
Yes. Is that to do with trannies?
Yes.
Are you allowed to say trannies, Nick? I ask you this every time I say it.
I think it's a hate crime, but...
Okay, please don't report me.
No.
But please, viewers, don't report me for my immediate hate crime.
So once you transitioned your old name, then it's insulting for someone to refer to your old name. Right? We're supposed to go along with that. The only time that doesn't work is if you're Tommy Robinson. Because every news report on Tommy Robinson always says Tommy Robinson in brackets,
formerly known as
Lexley, or whatever he was called. There is a great example.
That is a great example.
Why do they do that?
Yeah.
They do that because straight away, subconsciously, he's changed his name.
Something suspicious about the guy.
Why did he change his name? Something suspicious.
Yeah.
So it's rude and a hate crime to refer to a trans person by their dead name.
That is a really good point, that. Yeah, because what was that tranny in Scotland, the one who had walking along with an erection, put in prison? I can't remember her name. Her name. His name now. But they never said such and such. It was something like whatever she was called, Sheila, whatever. It didn't say in brackets formerly known as Peter such and such. It said Sheila such and such has been moved from such and such a prison to whatever.
But they do it to Tommy Robinson all the time. Yeah. So suspicion in the minds of people reading the article.
And when these blokes get arrested who say then they're a woman, it always says their female name. It never says formerly known in brackets next to them formerly known as. It's true. Yeah. That's a really good example of that. Yeah.
It sets the narrative.
Yeah. That is a really good... I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, every article about it has his former name in it, basically. His former name. Yeah, that's a really good one. But that Alex Rudakubana thing is kind of really pissing me off, to be honest. I want to move on. I'm just conscious of time, Nick, but we've had I just want to move on to I'll cover that.
Blocking your face.
Is it blocking
Oh, you
my
are
face? Thank you.
beautiful, man.
Thank you very, very much. Just something that we'll finish on something that our viewers have been asking about quite a lot, I think, which is the Cresta Court Hotel in Altrincham.
Yes.
So if I give you a bit of background, or give our viewers a bit of background on this, maybe you can tell me what our viewers have been asking, maybe you can tell me what you think you've heard. So, and I actually happen to know somebody who was staying in this hotel, and I said to them the other day, "Where are you staying?" And they said, "Well, I was staying in the Cresta Court, but I've been moved out." And I said, "Oh, right." I said, "I know why." Because what's happened is the Cresta Court Hotel, which is right in the centre of Altrincham, by the way, right by the town centre. And in Altrincham, there are quite a few schools, girls' schools, dotted all around. So there's a lot of obviously shoppers, pedestrians, but there's also lots of schools in the area as well. So it's kind of proper. Yeah. I would say it's a middle class environment. Is Altrincham. It's an affluent area. It's an affluent area. The government have taken over the Cresta Court and they've put in 300 migrants, basically illegal male.
The government haven't taken over the hotel. The government has paid the Cresta Court Hotel a shitload of money for them to take 300 migrants.
Yes, the government has paid the owners of the Cresta Court a shitload of money to take 300 migrants, but they're not migrant families, because there is apparently another hotel in Altrincham where they put migrant families in. These are single, fighting age men, basically, right in the heart of Altrincham. Now, the reason that's important is because Altrincham typically was a conservative borough or whatever, and it used to be, I can't remember what his name was now, the guy who used to be led the 1922 committee. Yeah. You know who? We'll come back to his name in a minute. So Trafford Council have allowed this to happen. Yeah. And we now have a situation, and by the way, my new house is very close to this, about a mile away.
Well, when you come to sell it, you won't be getting what you thought you could get for it.
Correct, yeah. So they're in there now for 12 months, apparently, minimum, these guys. So what have people been saying to you or asking about it?
People have been saying, do I know about it? And will we talk about it? They were the two sort of main comments. The reason why is because I run for mayor of Greater Manchester, so we must have quite a few followers and fans in the Altrincham area, so that's why they've mentioned it. Why has it happened? Well, it's happened because we've got an illegal immigration problem. It's happened there because it's a Labour council, so everybody in the area, if you voted Labour the last couple of local council elections, well, this is what happens when you get Labour. They're quite happy. I mean, the leader of Trafford Council released a statement saying this wasn't our fault, but we basically don't mind because we're a diverse, tolerant, compassionate council and area. So they contradicted themselves. We don't want it, but we're very tolerant and diverse and compassionate. So, of course, I'm not saying they wanted it, but they could have blocked it and didn't, because they're a Labour council under a Labour government, and on many of those senior councillors at Trafford would like to be MPs one day, and you don't become an MP by refusing favours to a Labour government, so that's why you've got it. The people who need punishing are the owners of Cresta Court. I think it's owned by
Greg Dyke.
Is it Greg Dyke?
Yeah, it's Best Western, which is owned by Greg Dyke.
Right. So when this contract ends and it's open to families again and weddings and receptions and stuff like that,
don't go
everybody local needs to go, I will never use you again.
Yeah.
Because you cancelled all those weddings, you brought people into the area we don't want, you did it all for money. We will never use your premises again. Now that doesn't fix the problem in Altrincham, but it will fix problems in areas that haven't got that problem yet, because at the moment the illegal immigration hotel owners, this is a quick buck for them.
Yeah, they're making millions off this.
But businesses know you do not sacrifice your long-term success for quick money over a couple of years. If you're going to ruin your reputation over a couple of years, then there's no point having the company in 20 years from now, because nobody will forgive you. And that's exactly what the people of Altrincham need to do, is boycott this business forever and teach other businesses you cannot treat us like that.
Yeah.
And bring unwanted people who are more likely to commit crime, because foreigners in this country commit crime at twice the rate as the people who are born here. Illegal immigrants are more likely to be criminals themselves, to be rapists, to be paedophiles, more likely to rape local girls, more likely, all these things we know to be true.
Yeah.
The government stats tell us all this is true.
Yeah.
And we're importing 300 single men into an affluent area, in any area. But let's be honest, if it's an affluent area, all those people should know better.
Yeah.
Have usually got bigger voices, have got better communication skills, and more likely to complain. Starts with the people of Altrincham.
I think they are starting to complain. I think the Trafford Council, I saw a video of a Trafford, I think I sent it to the Trafford Councillor, who they've been trying to hold meetings and they've been stopped from holding meetings at the moment.
Well, Trafford Council will not want meetings about this because they're on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can say or do that will stop the complaints, which will alleviate any of these problems. There's nothing they can do. So we're not going to meet with you.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no point meeting with them.
But I think this is kind of a good thing, because I think the people in that area who have voted Labour, who are...
We have local elections in May.
We have local elections in May, who have voted Labour, who believe themselves to be liberal, and, what's that thing? Migrants welcome here. What's that thing that...
Refugees welcome.
Refugees welcome, Yvette Cooper.
Yeah, but not in my neighbourhood, mate.
Now they're getting a taste of their own medicine, because now you're going to understand what happens when you vote in these grubby politicians who want to support uncontrolled immigration. This is what happens now. You middle-class people who've been telling it, saying, be kind, refugees welcome, all that bullshit. You're now getting a taste of your own medicine, aren't you? Because this is what happens when you allow uncontrolled immigration. You get people, 300 men, by the way, and we don't know, when the council's saying we're diverse and we welcome people, who are you welcoming? You've got no idea who you're welcoming. I don't mind saying, yes, we're diverse and we welcome people, but you want to welcome people who share your values, who aren't criminals, who won't rape your children, who, all those things. How do you know that's who you're welcoming in this situation? You don't know who the hell you've got there, do you?
The government don't know who these people are because they throw away their passports coming
Correct.
over.
Yeah.
Most of them got criminal records in countries they've come from.
Yeah.
And if you think it's bad now, wait until the real problems start. Wait until your daughters are coming home from school saying they got harassed by 15 men.
Yeah.
Wait until the first sexual assault. Wait until they're all outside smoking cannabis, taking drugs, getting drunk, fighting between themselves.
Yeah.
Wait until the first local people are assaulted. Wait until crime goes up.
Yeah.
This seems like a problem at the moment, but the problems haven't even started yet.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's really sad because I know. I mean, my kids, thankfully, are beyond school age now, but there's Altrincham Girls' School there, there's a private girls' school there as well. These girls all go into the town centre at their lunch.
300 men on their doorstep.
Yeah, they go into the town centre to have a drink or a coffee or socialise or whatever. Now they're going to go there, and there's potentially 300 characters. We don't know who the hell these guys are, because as you say, their passports are thrown away. I mean, we saw that video. Farage did that video, didn't he, the other day, of a guy, the journey of some rapper in Germany. He ended up on a boat, got into the UK, basically, threatening to kill Farage when he got here, basically. These people, a lot of them are criminals. They have criminal records. A lot of them have got physical assault records back, and as you say...
Some of them are mental and psychopaths.
Yeah, yeah. And they're just plonked right in the middle of Altrincham. Yeah. And a part of me is slightly annoyed, obviously, because I've just bought a house. But part of me is kind of saying, you're going to get a taste of you're getting a taste of your own medicine now. You've been lecturing us for years about be kind, refugees welcome, turning a blind eye to what's going on. There you are on your doorstep. So actually, during the course of this conversation, I've actually changed my mind. I think it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It can be a good thing, but the people who are to blame for this are Trafford Council, which means Trafford Labour Party.
Yeah.
That's who to blame, because honestly, this wouldn't have happened if Labour Council didn't give it a nod.
Yeah.
Because If a council says to you, you run a hotel, no. And if you go ahead with it, we're going to cause you all sorts of problems. You want your license reviewing, you want this reviewing, we're going to take away your alcohol license because there'll be trouble on the premises, or you don't need an alcohol license now, so that's fine, but you will at some point and we'll never give you one. Trafford Council could have stopped this if they wanted to, but they didn't, because they buy into all this crap. Trafford Council have not been elected to serve the people of Trafford. Trafford Council have been elected to serve the global communist state. And this is what you get when you vote for communist Labour.
I think you said something interesting the last time we talked. I'm conscious of the time here, Nick, but you said something the last time we spoke and you said things have got to get worse before they get better. I think what's happening now in the Cresta Court in Altrincham is a very, very clear example of that. This is where it's now starting to creep into people's lives, and they're starting to see the impact of what they've invited with this government and with these politicians.
God forbid something terrible happens to somebody because of this. God forbid. But if it does, we know who to blame. Andy Burnham's done nothing about it, said nothing about it. Trafford Council probably invited it in. The people will know who to blame, because there always has to be someone to blame. And we elect these people to govern us and make our lives better. And let's be perfectly honest, we're not on their top 3 priority.
No.
We're just not.
So I think it's really interesting. So I don't know if we can offer any words of comfort to our viewers on this one.
What I would say, if you live in that area and you're sick of this, you need to speak to your family, your friends, your neighbours. Someone needs to set up a local people against Cresta Court Facebook group. And get thousands of people joining that, where you can have discussions, where you can report stuff that's happening. Because the police won't be telling you they've arrested 9 migrants now for assaulting someone, or because they'll keep all that out of the news. They don't want any of it. But local people will know about it. They need to post it on there. It needs to be a groundswell of public support. You need to look at who's more likely to win the local elections. Is it the Tories again? Is it Reform? You need to start getting behind some of them, so they've got a better chance of taking over the council at the next election. But in a nutshell, Trafford Labour have to be punished, because if they don't feel like they've been punished, well, they'll do it again, won't they? Because there was no downside last time we did it. So you might not live in Altrincham, you might live in Sale, you might live in Old Trafford, you might live near Partington. Well, the next hotel could be there if Trafford Council are not punished about this.
And I think that's the message, isn't it? Mobilise people. Mobilise now. You need to mobilise, and that's the way to do it. And guys, if anybody does do that and set up a group or whatever, let us know, and we will
promote it.
We will promote it here, and we'll sign up to it as well. So.
And if someone's organising, once you've organised and you've got a group and you're doing public meetings, invite me, I'll come along and speak.
So you heard that, folks. So if somebody wants to get this moving, get some organisation going, mobilise, Nick's happy to come along and give a speech and support the group, which is great. I think that's really good of you, Nick. Okay. Right, so I think we've come to the end of this one. There was a loud explosion outside, I think.
Trafford Council, bomb! Nick Buckley's going to get involved. Bomb Nick Buckley.
The Islamists have found out where you live, Nick. So I think on that bombshell, literally, we'll end this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.